Canadian wine feels refined, elegant, celebrated. What risk could it possibly carry? More than most people realize. The average Canadian adult consumes about 7.2 liters of pure alcohol per year, and wine makes up nearly 30% of national alcohol sales. Many bottles contain 12 to 14% alcohol, measurable sulfites, and hidden sugar levels. Today, we're breaking down 7 widely sold Canadian wine brands that raise concerns around health, transparency, and environmental impact, and 3 safer options that prioritize lower sugar, clearer sourcing, and responsible production. 1. Moët Jackson Triggs. Jackson Triggs is one of the most widely distributed Canadian wine brands in the country. It was founded in 1993 and later became part of a large national wine corporation. Today, it produces wine in both Ontario and British Columbia, 2 provinces that account for roughly 95% of Canadian wine production. The brand operates on a high-volume model. Large-scale facilities can produce millions of bottles annually, which requires mechanical harvesting, stainless steel fermentation tanks, filtration systems, and chemical stabilization to maintain uniform taste across batches. Most Jackson Triggs table wines sit between 12.0% and 13.5% alcohol by volume. A standard 150 milliliter glass of 13% wine contains about 15 grams of pure alcohol, equal to 1 standard drink in Canada. Canada's updated alcohol guidance released in 2023 states that health risk begins to increase above 2 drinks per week, and risk rises significantly at 7 or more drinks per week. If someone consumes one full 750 milliliter bottle of 13% wine in one evening, they ingest approximately 75 grams of alcohol, which equals 5 standard drinks in a short time frame. Residual sugar levels in mainstream table wines often range from 2 to 12 grams per liter, depending on the style. Wines labeled dry can still legally contain up to 9 grams per liter of sugar in some regulatory systems. Higher residual sugar increases calorie load. A 150 milliliter glass of 13% wine contains roughly 120 to 130 calories, primarily from alcohol and sugar. Multiple glasses raise caloric intake quickly, contributing to weight gain when consumed frequently. Commercial wines may contain sulfites for preservation and oxidation control. Sulfite levels in mass-produced wines typically range between 50 and 150 milligrams per liter, with legal limits in many jurisdictions reaching up to 350 milligrams per liter. While these levels fall within food safety standards, some individuals report headaches or sensitivity after higher intake. Consuming several glasses in one sitting increases total sulfite exposure proportionally. Large-scale production also affects environmental footprint. Producing 1 liter of wine requires roughly 600 to 870 liters of water when agricultural irrigation and processing are included. Bottling, cork production, labeling, and transportation across Canada's long supply chains increase carbon emissions. A single 750 milliliter glass bottle weighs around 400 to 900 grams, adding transport load. High-volume distribution across provinces multiplies packaging and fuel use. The next brand intensifies sugar levels and expands mass consumption even further. Tamrizu, Peller Estates. Peller Estates is one of Canada's most recognized winery names, founded in 1961 in Niagara-on-the-Lake, Ontario. It operates under a large corporate structure and produces wine at significant scale across Ontario and British Columbia. Ontario alone accounts for approximately 62% of Canada's total wine production, and large facilities like Peller's contribute heavily to that volume. High-output wineries rely on mechanical harvesting, stainless steel tank fermentation, controlled yeast strains, and filtration systems to maintain consistent taste across millions of bottles each year. Most entry-level Peller Estates table wines range between 12.0% and 13.5% alcohol by volume. A standard 150 milliliter serving of 13% wine contains about 15 grams of pure alcohol, equal to 1 Canadian standard drink. According to Canada's 2023 alcohol guidance, health risk begins to increase above 2 drinks per week, with significantly higher risk at 7 or more drinks per week. A full 750 milliliters bottle of 13% wine contains roughly 75 grams of alcohol, equal to 5 standard drinks. Regular consumption at this level increases long-term risk for liver disease, cardiovascular complications, and certain cancers, based on national health data. Residual sugar in mass-market wines commonly ranges between 2 and 10 grams per liter for wines labeled dry and can exceed 15 grams per liter in semi-sweet varieties. Even small differences in sugar content add calories. A 150 milliliter glass of wine typically provides 120 to 130 calories, mostly from alcohol and sugar. Drinking 3 glasses equals nearly 390 calories, which accumulates quickly when repeated weekly. Sulfites are widely used in commercial wine production to prevent spoilage and oxidation. Typical sulfite levels in conventional wines range between 50 and 150 milligrams per liter, with regulatory limits in many regions set up to 350 milligrams per liter. While considered safe for most people, sulfite sensitivity affects a small percentage of consumers. Multiple servings increase total exposure proportionally. Peller Estates is also known for producing ice wine, a specialty product with very high natural sugar concentration. Ice wine can contain over 150 to 200 grams per liter of sugar, making it significantly sweeter than standard table wine. While consumed in smaller portions, its sugar density is among the highest of any wine style. Even a small 60 milliliter serving can contain more sugar than a typical glass of dry wine. Peller Estates maintains brand recognition, consistent supply, and broad market reach. However, alcohol concentration, measurable sugar levels, sulfite use, and production scale contribute to cumulative lifestyle and environmental impact when consumption is regular and widespread. 3. Inniskillin. Inniskillin is one of the most internationally recognized Canadian wine brands. It was founded in 1975 in Niagara-on-the-Lake, Ontario, and later expanded into British Columbia's Okanagan Valley. The winery became globally famous after winning a major award in 1991 for its Vidal ice wine, which helped establish Canada as a leader in ice wine production. Today, Inniskillin operates under a large corporate structure and distributes its wines nationally and internationally. Most Inniskillin table wines range between 12.0% and 13.5% alcohol by volume. A standard 150 milliliter serving of 13% wine contains approximately 15 grams of pure alcohol, equal to 1 Canadian standard drink. According to Canada's updated alcohol guidance in 2023, health risk begins to increase beyond 2 drinks per week, with higher risk levels at 7 or more drinks per week. A full 750 milliliters bottle of 13% wine contains roughly 75 grams of alcohol, equal to 5 standard drinks consumed in a short period if finished in one sitting. Inniskillin's table wines generally contain residual sugar between 2 and 9 grams per liter, for wines labeled dry, with higher levels in off-dry styles. Sugar content directly adds to calorie intake. A single 150 milliliter glass of wine typically contains 120 to 130 calories. 3 glasses can provide around 360 to 390 calories, primarily from alcohol and sugar combined. Over time, repeated intake at this level contributes to energy surplus. Inniskillin is especially known for ice wine, which is produced from grapes frozen naturally on the vine. Ice wine can contain 150 to 220 grams per liter of residual sugar, making it one of the sweetest wine styles globally. Although typically consumed in smaller portions of 50 to 60 milliliters, even that serving can contain 8 to 12 grams of sugar. The alcohol level of ice wine is usually around 9% to 11%, slightly lower than table wine but combined with very high sugar concentration. The next brand increases corporate scale and reduces sourcing transparency even further. 4. Black Cellar. Black Cellar is a Canadian wine label introduced in the early 2000s and positioned as a smooth, approachable, and easy drinking option. It operates under a large national wine corporation that produces millions of bottles annually across Ontario and British Columbia. These two provinces together account for roughly 95% of Canada's total wine production, with Ontario alone contributing about 62%. Black Cellar wines are distributed widely in provincial liquor stores and retail chains, giving them consistent national visibility. Most Black Cellar table wines range between 12.0% and 13.5% alcohol by volume. A standard 150 milliliters glass of 13% wine contains about 15 grams of pure alcohol, equal to 1 Canadian standard drink. According to Canada's updated alcohol guidance released in 2023, health risk begins to increase above 2 drinks per week, and risk rises further at 7 or more drinks per week. A full 750 milliliters bottle at 13% contains approximately 75 grams of alcohol, equal to 5 standard drinks consumed within a short period. Black Cellar markets many of its wines as smooth and easy to enjoy, which often correlates with moderate residual sugar levels. Wines labeled dry can still contain between 2 and 9 grams per liter of sugar. Some fruit-forward red blends may approach 10 to 12 grams per liter. Sugar adds directly to calorie intake. A single 150 milliliter serving of 13% wine provides roughly 120 to 130 calories. Consuming 3 glasses in one evening results in about 360 to 390 calories, mostly from alcohol and sugar combined. Commercial wines such as Black Cellar commonly use sulfites to maintain shelf stability. Typical sulfite levels in conventional wines range between 50 and 150 milligrams per liter, with regulatory maximum limits up to 350 milligrams per liter depending on jurisdiction. Sulfites help prevent oxidation and microbial growth. While considered safe for most people, higher intake from multiple glasses increases total sulfite exposure proportionally. Environmental impact is connected to production scale. Producing 1 liter of wine can require between 600 and 870 liters of water, including irrigation and processing stages. Glass bottles weigh between 400 and 900 grams, contributing to transportation emissions across Canada's large geography. High distribution volume increases packaging and fuel usage. While corporations may implement sustainability programs, total environmental load correlates directly with output size. Black Cellar represents a widely available, standardized wine option. 5. Wayne Gretzky Estates. Wayne Gretzky Estates is a Canadian winery based in Niagara-on-the-Lake, Ontario, launched in 2017. The brand carries strong celebrity recognition, which increases retail visibility across provincial liquor stores. Most table wines in the entry-level range sit between 12.5% and 13.5% alcohol by volume. A standard 150 milliliter serving of 13% wine contains about 15 grams of pure alcohol, equal to 1 Canadian standard drink. Canada's 2023 alcohol guidance indicates health risk begins above 2 drinks per week, and risk increases at 7 or more drinks per week. Many of the red blends and approachable whites are fruit-forward. Wines in this category commonly contain between 3 and 9 grams per liter of residual sugar. Even wines labeled dry can legally contain up to 9 grams per liter depending on classification. A single glass typically contains around 120 to 130 calories, and 3 glasses can exceed 360 calories in one sitting. Commercial wines often contain sulfites ranging between 50 and 150 milligrams per liter to preserve stability. Large-scale production supports wide distribution, increasing total packaging weight and transport emissions across provinces. The next brand expands industrial blending and further reduces sourcing transparency nationwide. 6. Open Chénardon, Arterra Wines Canada. Open is a Canadian wine label owned by Arterra Wines Canada, one of the largest wine producers in the country. Arterra operates multiple wineries, Mamoury, and manages dozens of brands, producing millions of bottles annually. Open is positioned as an accessible, easy-to-drink option with broad distribution across provincial liquor boards. High availability increases exposure and regular consumption patterns. Most Open wines range between 12.0% and 13.5% alcohol by volume. A standard 150 milliliter serving of 13% wine contains approximately 15 grams of pure alcohol, equal to 1 Canadian standard drink. According to Canada's 2023 alcohol guidance, risk begins to increase beyond 2 drinks per week, with significantly higher risk at 7 or more drinks per week. Finishing one 750 milliliter bottle at 13% equals roughly 5 standard drinks, or about 75 grams of alcohol in one sitting. Commercial production includes sulfite use for stability, generally between 50 and 150 milligrams per liter. Legal limits can reach 350 milligrams per liter. Large-scale blending from multiple vineyard sources reduces single-origin traceability. Broad national distribution increases packaging volume and transportation emissions across provinces. 7. Copper Moon, Arterra Wines Canada. Copper Moon is a Canadian wine brand owned by Arterra Wines Canada, one of the country's largest wine producers. The label is widely distributed across provincial liquor boards and retail outlets, making it easily accessible nationwide. High shelf presence increases frequency of purchase and regular consumption patterns among consumers. Most Copper Moon wines range between 12.0% and 13.5% alcohol by volume. A standard 150 milliliter serving of 13% wine contains approximately 15 grams of pure alcohol, equal to 1 Canadian standard drink. Canada's updated 2023 alcohol guidance indicates that risk begins to increase above 2 drinks per week, with higher health risk at 7 or more drinks per week. A full 750 milliliters bottle at 13% equals about 75 grams of alcohol, or 5 standard drinks consumed within a short period. Copper Moon wines are typically fruit-forward and smooth in style. Residual sugar in commercial blends often ranges between 3 and 10 grams per liter, Even wines labeled dry can contain measurable sugar. A single glass averages 120 to 130 calories, primarily from alcohol and sugar combined. Sulfite levels in conventional wines commonly range from 50 to 150 milligrams per liter for preservation. Large-scale production and national distribution increase packaging volume and transportation emissions across Canada. Before we proceed further, subscribe, like, and comment why you like this video for a chance to win a new Apple MacBook. Now we move away from high-volume industrial brands towards safer, lower-intervention producers. 1. Quailsgate. Quailsgate Winery represents a different scale and structure compared to high-volume national brands. It is a family-owned estate winery located in the Okanagan Valley, British Columbia. The Stewart family began farming in the region in 1956, and the winery officially opened in 1989. British Columbia accounts for roughly 33% of Canada's total wine production, with the Okanagan Valley being the country's most recognized premium wine region. Unlike large corporate operations producing millions of bottles, Quailsgate focuses on estate-grown fruit and controlled production volumes. Most Quailsgate table wines range between 12.5% and 14.0% alcohol by volume, depending on varietal and vintage. A standard 150 milliliter serving of 13.5% wine contains approximately 16 grams of pure alcohol, equal to 1 Canadian standard drink. Canada's 2023 alcohol guidance notes that health risk begins to increase above 2 drinks per week, and risk rises at 7 or more drinks per week. While alcohol content is similar to many other table wines, consumption patterns differ because premium estate wines are often consumed in measured servings rather than high-volume social drinking. Residual sugar in Quailsgate dry wines typically falls below 3 grams per liter for many varietals such as Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. Lower residual sugar reduces calorie contribution from carbohydrates. A 150 milliliters glass of 13.5% dry wine generally contains about 120 to 125 calories, primarily from alcohol rather than added sweetness. Compared to semi-sweet wines that may contain 8 to 15 grams per liter, this represents lower sugar intake per serving. Sulfites are still present in estate wines because they are used in nearly all commercial winemaking to prevent spoilage. However, premium wineries often aim to keep sulfite additions closer to the lower end of typical ranges, often between 50 and 100 milligrams per liter. Regulatory limits can allow up to 350 milligrams per liter, so lower additions indicate tighter fermentation control and storage practices. Lower sulfite exposure per glass reduces cumulative intake during moderate consumption. Quailsgate represents a structured estate model with controlled production, lower residual sugar profiles, vineyard traceability, and moderate sulfite management. Alcohol content remains standard for table wine, but scale, sourcing transparency, and production approach differentiate it from higher-volume national brands. Tamu'u Hidden Bench. Hidden Bench Estate Winery is a small-scale producer located in the Beamsville Bench sub-appellation of Niagara, Ontario. The winery was founded in 2003 and operates primarily with estate-grown fruit. Unlike large national brands producing millions of bottles annually, Hidden Bench focuses on limited production runs, often measured in the tens of thousands rather than millions. Ontario contributes about 62% of Canada's total wine production, but smaller estate wineries represent only a fraction of that output. Most Hidden Bench wines range between 12.5% and 13.8% alcohol by volume, depending on varietal and vintage. A standard 150 milliliters serving of 13% wine contains approximately 15 grams of pure alcohol, which equals 1 Canadian standard drink. Canada's 2023 alcohol guidance indicates that risk begins to increase above 2 drinks per week, with higher risk levels at 7 or more drinks per week. The alcohol strength itself is similar to many table wines, but smaller estate producers often promote measured tasting experiences rather than high-volume consumption. Hidden Bench is known for producing Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, and Riesling with relatively low residual sugar. Many of its dry wines contain less than 3 grams per liter of residual sugar. Lower sugar levels reduce calorie contribution from carbohydrates. A 150 milliliter serving of 13% dry wine generally contains around 120 calories, mostly from alcohol rather than added sweetness. Wines with higher sugar content, often exceeding 8 to 12 grams per liter, contribute more calories per serving. Sulfites are present in nearly all commercial wines, including estate wines, to protect against oxidation and spoilage. However, smaller producers often maintain sulfite levels toward the lower end of typical commercial ranges, generally between 50 and 100 milligrams per liter. Regulatory limits can reach up to 350 milligrams per liter, so moderate use reflects controlled fermentation and storage management. Hidden Bench has adopted organic and biodynamic vineyard practices over portions of its estate. Organic vineyard management reduces synthetic pesticide use and emphasizes soil health. While wine production still requires significant water resources, estimated between 600 and 870 liters per liter of wine, estate control allows closer monitoring of irrigation and vineyard inputs. Smaller production scale also reduces overall packaging and transport volume compared to national brands. Hidden Bench represents a controlled estate model emphasizing traceability, lower sugar profiles, moderate sulfite use, and limited production volume. Alcohol content remains standard for table wine, but sourcing transparency and agricultural practices differentiate it within Canada's broader wine market. 3. 50 Parallel Estate. 50 Parallel Estate Winery is located in the Okanagan Valley of British Columbia, one of Canada's primary premium wine regions. The winery was established in 2006 and operates as an estate-focused producer. British Columbia accounts for roughly 33% of Canada's total wine production. But estate wineries like 51st Parallel represent a smaller, quality-driven segment of that output. Production volumes are significantly lower than national mass-market brands, allowing tighter control over grape sourcing and fermentation practices. Most 50th Parallel wines range between 12.5% and 14.5% alcohol by volume, depending on varietal and vintage conditions. A standard 150 milliliter serving of 13.5% wine contains approximately 16 grams of pure alcohol, equal to 1 Canadian standard drink. Canada's 2023 alcohol guidance states that health risk begins to increase beyond 2 drinks per week, with higher risk at 7 or more drinks per week. Alcohol strength itself remains comparable to many table wines, but estate wineries often promote structured tastings rather than high-volume casual consumption. Residual sugar in many of 50 Parallel's dry wines typically falls below 3 grams per liter. Lower residual sugar reduces additional calorie contribution from carbohydrates. A 150 milliliter serving of 13.5% dry wine generally contains about 120 to 125 calories, primarily from alcohol. In comparison, semi-sweet wines containing 8 to 15 grams per liter residual sugar contribute higher caloric intake per glass. Sulfites are used in nearly all commercial winemaking for preservation. Estate producers commonly maintain sulfite levels within typical commercial ranges of 50 to 100 milligrams per liter, though legal maximum limits can reach 350 milligrams per liter depending on jurisdiction. Controlled fermentation environments and smaller batch sizes support moderate preservative use. From an environmental perspective, producing 1 liter of wine can require approximately 600 to 870 liters of water, including vineyard irrigation and processing. Estate wineries manage irrigation practices directly, which allows monitoring of water usage and soil health. Smaller production volumes also mean reduced packaging and distribution scale compared to nationally distributed brands. A standard 750 milliliter glass bottle weighs between 400 and 900 grams, contributing to transportation emissions, but limited output lowers total carbon footprint relative to high-volume operations. 50th Parallel Estate emphasizes vineyard traceability, estate-grown fruit, controlled production size, and moderate sugar profiles. Alcohol strength remains standard for table wine, but scale, sourcing transparency, and estate management practices differentiate it within Canada's broader wine landscape. So, subscribe, like, and comment why you like this video for a chance to win a new Apple MacBook.